Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending as we move into the last event of a remarkably elucidating and illuminating weekend with our two scholars in residence, Major General Noam Tibon, his wife Gali Mir Tibon, who spoke at 2 o'clock about Romanian Jewry during the Second World War. This evening's presentation is going to be is entitled Understanding Today's Middle East. And I think for a lot of American Jews and Americans in general, that's always a little bit difficult because we are blessed by having a large ocean on our western shore and on our eastern shore, and friendly countries to the north and west. And so we don't have to grow up sort of understanding the intricacies of geopolitics in the ways that people who live in countries surrounded by neighbors who are friendly or less so need to do. So I'm very excited that Major General Tibon will be able to share some of those insights with us. As I've introduced him over this course of this weekend, I've often shared his remarkable CV of military posts, his educational attainments. I want to focus on a different aspect, which is that in addition to that remarkable resume of life and commitment to Eretz Yisrael, to the state of Israel, he's also had the responsibility to investigate certain military incidents that have gone wrong, in which either enemy combatants or innocent civilians died, in which friendly fire, which he alluded to yesterday, occurred. And he's been entrusted to be able to have the insight to analyze, to investigate, to penetrate, and to, in that way, uncover the truth. That is a difficult and sometimes thankless task because it can push against the politics that people desire to hear. And yet it is also the very skills that I think will make this presentation so illuminating. That ability to really understand complex systems and to unpack it for us in a way that will help increase our own understanding. I finally just really want to thank Brian Schur and the Family Foundation for making this Scholar in Residence program available to our community for the 6th year. It is a beautiful tribute to Yoni Suher, and I remember as if it were yesterday when you and I spoke not so long after that terrible day in Istanbul, and when it became clear that this would be a way to remember him, to honor him, to keep his memory alive in front of us. And this program continues to attract our community, and for that I am very grateful. So I think I've stalled as long as I can as people have gotten food from the buffet line. This time I'd like to turn the podium over to our guest scholar in residence, Major General Noam Tibon.
Bon appetit. Enjoy the great food. In the military, we always says that where there is good food, there is good fighters. In the last presentation, what I will try to do is basically to discuss the Middle East and the challenges and the opportunities that the state of Israel has in this environment. Now, usually when people discuss the priority of the risk to the state of Israel, they always start with Iran as the number one problem, risk to the state of Israel. My point of view is a little bit different. We discussed yesterday our interior problems, which I believe this is the most dangerous thing to the state of Israel. And today we had a very painful reminder to what I believe is our number one security problem or challenge of the state of Israel. And this is the Palestinians. The Palestinians in the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, and the Palestinians inside Gaza under the Hamas. And basically, I truly believe that by large, this is the most dangerous challenge for the state of Israel. And if we just look what happened today, there was a terror attack in a place called Hawara. And to the people who are familiar in the West Bank, the main roads that the settlers are using every day, some of them are going through Palestinian villages and towns. And one of them is Hawara. If you want to go to places like Bracha, Yitzhar, Alon Moreh, you have to go through this village. And this is what we call in the military hot spot, because there is always friction in this spot between Israelis and Palestinians, and it creates a lot of hate and blood. So what happened today, there was a terror attack by, I guess, one terrorist, I'm not so sure, because those cities are very crowded, you have to drive very slowly, and he came with a pistol and killed two brothers from the settlement Bracha. So this is terrible, and you know, there is a mother, my wife know her, that lost two kids in one day. It's terrible. Immediately afterward, the IDF, instead of trying to run and catch the terrorist, was challenged by Israeli settlers, hundreds of Israeli settlers, who came to this village and called for revenge, nekama. And this is terrible, because revenge and nekama is the blood cycle that we are living inside for so many years. Revenge, revenge, revenge. We kill them, they kill us, we kill them, they kill us, and this is ongoing for so many years. So those people who come for revenge, they put more than 10 Palestinian houses on fire, that soldiers, instead of running after the terrorists, they had to go and rescue those Palestinians. And to do what soldiers are not supposed to do is to stand in between the Israelis and the Palestinians and try to calm down the whole situation. And this is only one day in the West Bank, and basically we, since this last government, basically we have such an incident every week, once a week, in Jerusalem or in the West Bank. When I was the commanding general of the West Bank Division, I created very good relationship with the Palestinian Authority, police forces, and security forces. And those forces, which enjoyed American support on daily basis, are preventing terror attacks against Israelis. But right now, because of all this revenge and the policy, this very important link between the Israelis, security forces, the IDF and the Shabak, and the Palestinian security forces was cut. And it is very dangerous. And I highly believe that no matter what, this is the number one problem of the State of Israel, and this is the highest priority to find a solution. And the solution, and we talked about it yesterday, in my eyes, the only solution is the two-state solution. So I don't believe that we in the world today can control 2 million Palestinians and make them feel good. We don't want that they will become Israeli citizens, because then we don't have a Jewish state anymore. And the idea that we can kick them out, that some Israeli extremists thinking about, of course, it cannot work in the world today. And it's risking the state of Israel because it's influenced almost everything. The relationship between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So when you look on the Middle East today, in the way, in terms of Israel, the core business stay to solve the Palestinian problem. And to solve it, you need leadership on both sides. And we have problem on our side, and I can admit that the Palestinians are suffering from poor leadership so many years. Yasser Arafat and Abu Mazen never took a real strategic decision to achieve peace with Israel. So Abu Mazen, which is much better, he is talking about it, but when you look at the topics between the Israelis and the Palestinians, Jerusalem, the refugees, the right to return, you need courage to solve it, because Israel will not agree for the right to return. And they never get deep in order to solve those issues. So this is the reality, and until we will have the right leadership on both sides, I guess we will continue to suffer. And the solution is only political solution. Believe me, I was a brigade commander in 2 brigades, one in Bethlehem and one in Hebron, during the Intifada. So I'm a professional guy in terms of fighting terror. I know how to do it. But it is not solving the problem. Even if you bring the terror to a very low level, like what we did in a very tough battles during the Second Intifada, and we won the terror. And the terror came very, very low. Still, it didn't solve the problem. So whenever people want to ignore the Palestinian problem, they would say, Iran. But I want you to know that Iran is very dangerous, and we are going to talk about Iran, but this is not the main problem of the State of Israel in terms of security. So after we discuss the Palestinian in the West Bank, let's take a few words about the Palestinian in Gaza. So Gaza, I believe, is one of the worst places to live on earth. By the way, they have beautiful beaches, but it is crowded, It is locked down from all sides and no future. And Gaza is controlled by the Hamas. The main problem in Gaza, just like the West Bank, is huge unemployment, especially when we are talking about young people. And that's why people work in digging tunnels or doing all kind of stuff, which is not normal. We are very proud, Gali and myself, that our oldest son, Amir, which was here, Amir Tibon, and I recommend all of you to read his articles in Haaretz, in English. Much better than what I'm saying to you in this weekend. And they live in Kibbutz Nahal Oz, on the border, really pioneers. And you look at Gaza, when I come to visit my two young granddaughters, and you look at Gaza and you say, nothing good can get out of it. No hope at all. And when you push people with the back to their wall, they are always very dangerous. So if we have terror attacks on the West Bank once in a while, the situation in Gaza is that every year, on yearly basis or every 2 years, we need to do a military operation, which basically we're using a lot of air power, and we are destroying Gaza again and again and again. And it's not solving the problem, because what will solve the problem is if we will allow them to build port, airport, we will allow them to work, to provide, and to become normal. And even though there is no one Israeli soldier on the soil of Gaza, because we went out during the Arik Sharon administration, the problem still exists there. And again, Hamas, just like the Palestinian Authority, they suffer from poor leadership, which is not working for the people. The common ground is the hate for the state of Israel. But they cannot win us, they cannot wipe us, and that's why this is a solution that we need to solve. And I believe, and I highly believe, that what we are doing now, the policy of the Israeli government in the last few years, is to control the situation. Not to bring peace, but to control the situation, which means we can live normal life without too many terror attacks. But it is not solving the problem. So after we discuss the Palestinians, let's talk about Iran. Because Iran is not the problem only of the state of Israel. Iran is the problem of the world. And the very, very, very dangerous axis between Iran, Syria, Russia is dangerous for the world. So you should be very aware, it's not in the Middle East, but it is in Europe, of this terrible war between Russia and Ukraine. Frankly, we in the military, we used to say that we are not going to see such a conventional war, attrition war on Europe after World War II anymore. But basically, what we are facing now is very similar to World War I. There is a line, very tough winter, and no mercy. But there is a very interesting point, and that's why democracies always win, because you can see that, Putin decided to get and to occupy Ukraine from his interior reasons. And I believe that just like Hitler, there is one bullet that can stop this war, if it will be in the head of Putin. That's it, because one man driving the whole world to a crazy places. And we learned this, lesson in the history. But we can see that the big Russian army was not strong, was not well, with almost everything. They were on very low standard in terms of equipment, weapon, technical issues. And for us, it wasn't a surprise. But yes, we were fascinating the way that until now, the Ukrainians are winning their war. And they are winning the war because they have nothing to lose. They are protecting their country. And they are winning the war because the Russian army is totally corrupt and the morale is very low. But Russia now is very dangerous, and still this is a nuclear empire. And the relationship between Russia and Iran is very dangerous to the world, not only to us. Very dangerous to Europe, very dangerous to the United States of America. Iran is an empire for so many years. When you look deep in Iran, it's very interesting because on the one hand, this crazy Ayatollah regime, very religious, very cruel, is taking Iran to very bad places. And let me tell you one thing about this nuclear program. This nuclear program is dangerous to the world. But it's also dangerous to Iran, because once you have a bomb, in the world today you have insurance policy to this corrupt, dangerous regime. Nobody is going to mess with them. Iran understand it, and I can tell you that in my eyes, the Trump administration did a huge mistake that they went out of the agreement. Because since the US went out of the agreement, the Iranians pushed forward much faster. And according to what we understand today, it's their decision whether to go 2 more steps forward and to have a bomb. Not a rocket, but a bomb. And this is very dangerous. On the other hand, the people in Iran had enough of this regime, especially the young people. And if you will meet young people in Iran, they want McDonald's, Facebook, NetVision, things that we see as normal life, which do not exist there, because there is no freedom there. And I highly believe that those forces inside the Iranian society are moving things there. On the one hand, the regime become more and more extreme, but on the other hand, we can see that those guys are demonstrating, and they have a lot of people who are willing to die for the freedom. And in that case, it becomes dangerous for the regime. Basically, what Israel is trying to do in terms of the nuclear bomb of Iran is to prevent it. And we are using a term that we call in Israel the war between the wars. So we're using a lot of operations inside Iran to destroy their nuclear program. We kill engineers, we make the centrifuges work on the wrong side and burn, and a lot of stuff. So this can slow down, and it's slowing down for many years, but it cannot stop. To stop it, you need two options. The best option is to bring the Iranian to a place that they will understand that it's not for the good of their country or for their regime. The second place is a military attack. A military attack can be mainly by air power. And this is very complicated because they learn from the Israeli attack on the Iraqi nuclear reactor. And instead of one site, they have hundreds of sites, most of them under the ground. And that's why air attack can delay it, cannot stop it, if Israel is doing it alone. And I believe that's the only power in the world that can really deal with this issue. Of course, it's very risky, is the United States of America. And this is why Israel and the United States in this case have very good relationship in terms of intelligence and, let's say, option on the table. I highly believe that the Iranians are very smart people. Very smart people. And that's why their policy is to walk on the edge, which means to come to a point that, as I said, it's their decision that they can have this nuclear power, but not to do it on a time where it can create an event that they will be attacked by Israel, or more than this, by the United States of America. And they are bluffing and they are lying, and this is something which most of our intelligence in the state of Israel is focused today on this nuclear program of Iran. Iran is trying to do something else, which is very dangerous. And this is what we call the Revolutionary Guard. And basically, they were very involved in the war in Syria. Basically, the Assad regime won this war because they and the Russians helped him. And in a way, they are now, basically, what they are trying to do is to open another front against the state of Israel from the Golan Heights. So basically, what they have today is Hezbollah. And when you are talking about Hezbollah, you are talking about Iran. And they have thousands of missiles that can cover all over the state of Israel. And they try to do the same organization in Syria. And when you hear all the time about Israeli attacks in Syria, basically it's focused on two issues. One is on those Iranian guard posts or headquarters to prevent them, to create this second front. And the other one is against what Hezbollah is trying to do is to convert their missiles to guided missiles, which is much more dangerous. Because most of their missiles today are not accurate. But once, it's not complicated technically to make it a guided missile that can hit a point on a map. And Israel is trying to prevent it. So when you look on this northern front of Israel, basically we see Iran, we see Syria, and we see Hezbollah. But more dangerous than this, Syria is a failed country, and Lebanon is a failed country. The economy is crashing, the relationship between the Christians and the Muslims, and this is the main problem of Israel today, because when we are talking about Hamas, about Gaza Strip, is a terrible place to live. Lebanon, failed country. Syria, failed country. And this is a tough neighborhood to live in. And that's why we need strong military force, and we need the support of the United States of America to protect our small country. In terms of Hezbollah is still the most dangerous enemy that we have on our border, but they have a lot of missiles. They developed all kinds of small commando forces that they try to build a network of tunnels that they can enter inside Israel, but they are along the border. And I believe that if there will be another circle of violence or war in Lebanon, we will have to destroy many parts of Lebanon, because all those missiles are in villages, in houses, in neighborhoods, inside the houses. You cannot separate it. And it's going to be tough because a lot of missiles will fly to Israel. So we have the Iron Dome, and we have, the best protection in the world for missiles, but the numbers are different when we are talking about Lebanon. And it will cover the whole state of Israel. And then Israel will have to act in a very violent way in order to stop it. So this is basically the big map. But there are a lot of very interesting opportunities. And I will highlight one opportunity, even though it's not the best person on earth, but I think if you would ask Assad from Syria today, if he want a battle against Israel or he want quiet, he would say, I want quiet. And I don't know if you know, Israel took care of a lot of wounded people from the war in Syria. We brought them to Israeli hospitals. We took good care of them. So I think in terms of Syria, there is something, they don't feel comfortable between Russia and Iran. And maybe there is an opportunity here. You have to do it very, very quietly, but maybe there is an opportunity here. On the other hand, we have peace agreement with very important countries in the region. And unfortunately, we are not doing enough with this peace. The first one is Egypt. And Egypt is a great country It was the strongest country, the Arab country in the region, still is. They have a huge army. And the main problem of Egypt is economy. How to feed all those people. And Israel can really help them with this issue. So we have a wonderful relationship with the Egyptian when it comes to security, and we help them a lot in their battles against Al-Qaeda in Sinai. But in terms of more relationship or open borders, like, let's say, the United States and Canada, we are not there yet. And I believe that this is a very important mission for the state of Israel to support the economy of Egypt and to improve the relationship, because Egypt is very, very important for us. Another country which is very important for us is Jordan. And you have to remember that the longest border of Israel is with Jordan. All our eastern border is with Jordan. And it's almost totally quiet. And I can tell I'm very involved of the relationship between Israel and Jordan. Jordan is a poor country. Israel is helping them a lot, mainly with water. And today it's getting more and more natural gas. But the relationship between the countries are not good enough. Now, I'm visiting Jordan a lot as a tourist. And I can tell you this is a wonderful country to be a tourist in. And when you come as an Israeli, they treat you wonderful. But on the political level, on both sides, the relationship are not good enough. And this is also something which we have to work very hard. To sign a peace agreement is one thing. To bring it to something which is more normal, more natural to the young generation is a different thing. And this is a great challenge. The Abraham Accord. I highly believe that this is a very good achievement for the state of Israel. I visited Dubai and Bahrain. Amazing what's going on in the desert. All the high buildings, and it's crazy. Those guys understand business. And unlike Jordan and Egypt, Israel is developing a lot of business between Israel and those Gulf countries. But I think the main goal of Israel is to achieve relationship with Saudi Arabia. And Saudi is running through a huge changing process. This guy, MBS, which I know he is not, his reputation here in the US is not so good, but he is changing his country in terms of economy, in terms of relationship between, male and female, and a lot of other stuff. And in the Middle East today, there is Iran, Syria, Lebanon. This is Russia. This is one axis. And basically, all the countries like Saudi, like Jordan, like Egypt, like the Gulf countries, they feel very threatened by Iran. And they are very, very afraid that Iran will have this nuclear power. And that's why today there is a huge opportunity to really change the relationship with Saudi. So in terms of security, below the surface, we start to develop relationship, but In terms of more relationship, the Kingdom of Saudi stands still and basically said, you have to solve the Palestinian problem before we will have full relationship with you. But in terms of interest in the region, Israel, Saudi, Jordan, Egypt, and the Gulf countries are all in the same camp against the Iranian nuclear program. The United States was present for too many years in the region, mainly in Iraq, and this was really a swamp, and you stayed there too long. And I think today the Middle East is not the main interest of the United States of America. The war between Russia and Ukraine, China, so there are other big problems in the world. And as I told you, the relationship between Israel and the United States is very strong, and Israel, in a way, is very dependent on, in terms of security, on the United States. We used to say for many years that we are the only democracy in the region, and we have to work hard and to fight hard to keep it in the same way, because I know that young people in America start to ask questions. Why we are supporting Israel so much, etc., etc. And I'm sure that you are more aware than me about all those question marks, about those spatial relationships. So to summarize everything, if you would ask me, yes, Israel still needs a very strong military force based on a nation which is united to protect its own country. And when the nation is not united, this is terrible. There are challenges, there are opportunities. In my eyes, we have to work very hard to solve the Palestinian issue. This depends mainly on us and on the Palestinians, and we have to work shoulder to shoulder with the Americans regard to Iran, because this issue is a little bit too big on Israel alone. This is what we have to do, and I know that you love to ask questions, so I will stop here, and the floor is all yours.
Development of energy weapons against missiles.
Okay. He's in the business, Rabbi. Okay, so basically, Israel developed this Iron Dome system against missiles. This is a unique system, very smart system, but very expensive system. So basically, to shut down a missile flying from Gaza that costs something like $500, sometimes you need 2 Iron Dome missiles, each one of them is $100,000. And at the end of the day, when we are talking about hundreds and thousands of missiles flying to Israel, it cannot work. And basically, the solution is on another system that right now is developing in Israel based on laser energy, which can work fantastic. and very cheap, and there is no limitation to how many missiles you can kill with this energy. Just like, Star Wars, in a way. You see all those flashes, etc. And yes, this is the future, and we have to develop it, because around Israel there are thousands of missiles every day ready to launch. Okay, guys, let's go to the question.
Thank you. I have two main questions. I really want to go back to Trump, but I'm going to leave that. I'm curious. I have two main questions. I'd really like to talk about Trump, but I'm going to leave that. Biden, what is he doing right? What is he doing wrong in your eyes? And then second, the Palestinian problem has been the Palestinian problem that we all know has existed for decades. I know that it is in the interest of other Gulf countries for there to be this dynamic that Israel is constantly fighting the Palestinians within its own country. And I think about the IRA and England and the fact that they were able to work this out. I think about people that I know, that I've met, tour guides that have served in the Army that are confident this can work out. Do you think it's possible for this to work out with Israelis talking directly to the parties? Or do you think there's a possibility, has there ever been an effort to get other Gulf country leaders to be part of that solution? Because it seems like it's always the U.S. and Israel trying to, and that's what we see in the news. But I'm curious if there's anything involving the Saudis or whomever.
Okay. I will try to be very humble and polite, because I'm not the right guy to give grades to President Biden. But in my eyes, what he is doing in Europe by supporting Ukraine with good American weapons and create this attrition that basically destroying Russia, destroying their economy, destroying their society. And as I told you, I hope that this will lead to the fall of Putin. I think this is a very smart strategy, because he's doing it in the right level. And when you do it in the right level, you achieve your goal without risking American soldiers. And this, I think, it's very smart policy. Regard to the Palestinians. Since 1948, the Palestinian leadership took the wrong way on every junction of decision that they can make in order to help themselves and to have a country. But it's still our problem. We cannot ignore it. This is our daily life. I describe you a day in Israel today. And how do I know that something happening? Because my phone starts to ring, because people want that I will go on TV or radio and explain what's going on and what we have to do. I was involved in a lot of discussion with Palestinians. I believe that if you would ask the average Palestinian if he wants peace with Israel, in the situation right now, which means they will not have everything they ask for, and the border will not be exactly on the green line, etc., the average Palestinian would say yes. I don't think that they care so much about Palestinians in refugee camp in Lebanon or in Jordan. they are very focused on their life, on their economy, employment, etc. The main problem is poor leadership on their side. And I can tell you that, Ariel Sharon, that unfortunately, he was not healthy. But basically, after the evacuation or during the evacuation with Gaza, he did a small evacuation in the northern part of the West Bank as an experiment. And it worked. It showed that Israel can take settlements off and bring the people back to Israel. And we can do it. So I highly believe that if the state of Israel will decide to take off some of the settlements in order to create a border, this is achievable. I did it myself when I was in uniform. It depends on the government today is just on the opposite. And this is terrible because you see the tragedy between those two countries or two nations and fighting and fighting and fighting. And yes, if it happened in Northern Ireland or in places like Kosovo, when there were Muslims, we have to be optimistic. So I believe, or I hope that one day we can achieve something like this. But yes, I talk with a lot of Palestinians. No problem. Good people.
General, as a military man, what are you seeing in terms of how the war is being fought in Ukraine that either creates opportunity for Israel in terms of its military planning or creates threat that you think the state needs to respond to?
Number one, I think that Israel is doing a mistake because we are not fully on the side of Ukraine. Israel is always sitting on the fence. And yes, we have relationship with Russia. We want to keep this quiet because Russia has bases in Syria. But I'm talking about moral. As a nation, we have to stand still behind the Ukrainians and help them. And I think this is what America is doing better than us. The main problem in the war in Ukraine, when we are now on attrition war, it can take years. And that's why I hope that there will be one brave Russian or few brave Russian because this, in my eyes, this is the only way to stop this war right now. I don't see any other ways to stop this war.
This is a related question. We've seen Putin's oligarchs using disinformation and influence to destabilize democracies. Do you see some of that same activity happening in Israel? And if so, how is it being responded to?
This is a great question. Most of those oligarchs are fully corrupt, and many of them it's not their money. It's money that belongs to Putin. Unfortunately, a lot of Jewish guys, unfortunately, a lot of them are using the state of Israel and become citizens of Israel because they are Jewish. I think that those guys are not good guys, and the world must take care of them. And what the sanctions and all this stuff, I highly believe that we should do it more often all over the world. Unfortunately, Israel is not doing good in this. Yes, but this money is using to do terrible things all over the world. I don't see Maybe there is one of two, but most of the oligarchs, bad people that are not doing good things with their money, by large.
It seems to me that the problem in Gaza and the problem in Iran is the same problem. That is, in Gaza, the problem's Hamas. In Iran, the problem's the Khomeini regime. What do you think could be done by Israel and Gaza, maybe the United States and Iran, to discredit, dislodge, and disempower those two regimes?
It's very complicated to work against the regime because Gaza is so poor. So we said, okay, you put more sanction on them. They are one of the poorest countries in the world, or it's not a country, or society in the world. So in terms of Gaza, and I don't think it's the same problem. In terms of Gaza, I would say, give them hope. I would take the risk to give them hope. I would prefer that they will work in building their own port, airport, roads, become a more modern place where people can live in normal place. And I think that, this will bring the change. It's not one day, but we can see Islamic countries which are very, very moderate. Not all the Islam is extreme. In terms of Iran, I think that the right way is to help the opposition in Iran, to give them tools and support and money to fight the regime. The regime in Iran is not so strong. The people in Iran hate them. They are afraid, but they hate them. And you can drive on this energy in order to change the regime in Iran. And the Iranian people are smart people. Smart people.
I'm interested in what your sense might be of the impact of the current Israeli government on the Abraham Accords.
I don't think that will impact, okay? But I truly believe that if the government will lose control of what's going on in the West Bank, it will impact. If there will be more and more incidents of revenge by settlers, this is not good for the state of Israel. It's not good for our moral, for our image, and for our relationship all over the world, include the countries in the Gulf.
I asked this question after having spent perhaps 20 years within the left-wing part of the American Jewish community, working, advocating with government for a two-state solution and being very involved with J Street. And I have to say, except for what you mentioned earlier from Ariel Sharon, when he actually ordered evacuation of some settlements and left Gaza, which Gaza unfortunately was neglected and went to heck. But I have never seen any of the governments that I've watched do anything but postpone settlement construction. And at this point, after decades of advocating, I don't see any possible path toward a viable and contiguous, meaningful Palestinian state. And I've lost all belief that Oslo has any future. And so I'm despondent, but I'm willing to listen to what you have to say to that.
You can be an Israeli citizen. Okay. Yes, it is hard. And the circle of violence since the Oslo Agreement is on daily basis. But when you look at other solutions to this problem, basically there is the two-state solution. It doesn't matter if you get it by an agreement or by evacuation, but at the end of the day, you create a wall between Israel and Palestine. So this is one option. And many Israelis say, just like you, we cannot talk with them. Let's do an evacuation of the places that we don't want to be, keep the places that we want to be in our hands, and live like this another 20 years. So this is one solution. The other solution is one state. And one state, there is two issues. Either it will become South Africa, and we know what happened to South Africa. And again, by luck, they had the leadership of Nelson Mandela. Otherwise, they were slaughtered. All the white people there slaughtered them. And that's why I'm talking about leadership. Or one man, one vote, and then it's not a Jewish state anymore. And for me, it's very important that we will be a Jewish state. And that's why maybe this solution is not so good, but from all the options on the table, I think it's the best solution to look for. And maybe to try to find the right leadership on both sides. Because once it will be decided, I can tell you, it's not an issue to take off most of the Israelis and bring them home. Okay, last question.
Okay, thanks. It was really educational, both last night and today. I have read, and a long time ago, another kind of an alternative, maybe just pie in the sky, which is Egypt takes Gaza and Jordan confederates with the West Bank. Is that anything in the still talked or discussed that?
I will tell you this. Anwar Sadat was very smart. He was one of the smartest leaders, and we are talking a lot about leadership. When he won the 73 war in his way, because Israel won tactically on the ground, but he won strategically. And he got back every inch of Sinai. And when the Israelis asked him, hey, what about Gaza? He said, no. The same King Hussein, which basically understood that the West Bank will bring his country to a place which is dangerous to his kingdom. So this is really a hot spot. And I don't believe that this idea of some kind of is achievable anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I really would like to thank you from the deep of my heart of this event that you are doing on behalf of our dear Yoni Suher, that we miss him so much. I'm dealing with a lot of families who lost their loved in war or in terror attack, and it's very impressive what's going on here in this wonderful community in Portland. So on behalf of me and I guess of the family, we would like to thank you so much. And I hope you got some good ideas of what's going on in Israel, not only from the news. And as usual, we need your help and support that the state of Israel will stay a democracy and will stay strong forever. Thank you very much.